Look at the first line. Daredevil Born Again enjoyed a strong launch on Disney+. Yeah, I'm not so sure that's the case.
Renegade Online.
And let's talk about this Daredevil thing. Have you guys out there been watching this new Daredevil show? Disney yanked this back off of Netflix some years ago. The rumor was that they paid to release themselves from the contract early, although I don't know 100%. I can't recall. It's been a few years now if that was ever confirmed. There was some figure out there of around $100 million or so that Disney had to fork over to take that set of Marvel stuff that they had created over there off of Netflix before the natural contract expiration, although some reports have suggested the contract naturally expired. We'll throw that out for a moment, but let's talk about this. Daredevil Born Again launches with 7.5 million views on Disney+. Now, you guys out there that have been watching me long enough know that we don't tolerate the marketing BS. Now, I'm not saying the number is marketing BS. I am saying what they are trying to do with it is entering the realm of marketing BS. And let me show you what I mean. 7.5 million views on Disney+. Now, a lot of people out there think, oh, that's good. All right, that's good. People out there asking, that's good. They throw this number out there to get people's attention, especially the Disney sycophants, the Disney Marvel sycophants, and make them think that this show is just doing fine. Well, in some regards, you might consider that it is. In others, you might consider that it is another very clear indicator that Disney Marvel is just a completely dead animal. I mean, we're seeing it right now with Captain Falcon DEI. This is no different. This was one of the most popular shows that Netflix had when it was on there. And that's when Netflix was a lot smaller than it is today. And this was a big hit for Netflix. This is not nearly, I think, as big of a landing as Disney would have hoped. Let me show you what I mean. According to the Mouse House, the Marvel television series drew 7.5 million views in its first 5 days of availability on Disney+, with the view defined as total stream time divided by runtime. That makes it the biggest streaming debut on the platform this year. Unless I'm mistaken, we're only about 60 to 70 days into this year. This is not a high bar. What else has launched on Disney Plus this year of note? Nothing. Nothing at all. This is the same crap that we got a year ago with Echo. It's the biggest premiere on Disney Plus of the year, and Echo came out in February or whatever. I mean, it was ridiculous to make this claim, but this is the magic of Disney. Look at the first line. Daredevil Born Again enjoyed a strong launch on Disney+. Yeah, I'm not so sure that's the case. Disney doesn't regularly release viewership information about its streaming shows, so exact comparisons are difficult, although they've released enough. But for some context, it's previously reported that Paradise drew 7 million views across the first 9 days of streaming on Hulu and Disney Plus earlier this year. What's Paradise? Is that attached to a major IP? I don't believe so. The first episode of fellow Marvel show Agatha All Along hit 9.3 million views in its first week of availability in September. Okay, right there. That's where we stop. 7.5 million views is less than 9.3 million views, and Agatha All Along was a low bar, or one of the very low bars, maybe better than Echo, but a low bar for Disney Plus and MCU titles. Now, people want to argue, but Valiant, that's a week. Daredevil was release date plus 5, so there's about a 24 to 48 hour difference. Bear in mind, however, and this is the key thing that people often forget, is that most of those views happen in the first 24 to 48 hours. There's a precipitous drop after that point. In other words, adding an extra 2 days to Daredevil is probably unlikely to get it to the levels of Agatha all along. It might pick up in total maybe another million views if it's really lucky at that point. But it's probably not going to break Agatha. See, my thing is that if it had actually broken through Agatha all along and produced 9.5 or even 10 million views after the first full week, we probably would have heard about that from Disney because they would have liked to have shared that information. Disney chose to release the data on this when they did because at that point, probably the viewership of the show had tremendously slowed down or ground to a halt. There were probably not going to be many more views to tally. And Disney already caught a lot of flack a few months ago with the premiere of Skeleton Crew, the latest entry in a dead Star Wars franchise that is now shepherded by Disney well into a pile of sheep crap. They didn't even release numbers on that, although they told us things about The Acolyte. They told us things about other shows that came out on Disney Plus last year, but not Skeleton Crew, and we called them out for it. That was notably absent after Disney had created a precedent over and over again for roughly the last, say, year to year and a half of releasing data when new major IP shows released on Disney Plus. In fact, the first one out there, if you may recall, was Ahsoka. And I have that in here. Ahsoka draws 14 million views for the first episode, August 29, 2023, roughly 18 months ago now. That's where Disney started this new thing. Now, again, to folks out there, that seemed like a big number. But when you actually started reverse engineering some things, it wasn't quite as big as one would have hoped. Oh, and by the way, that 14 million views for Ahsoka, or how about The Acolyte? 4.8 million views in one day and 11.1 million views over the first 5 days. That's almost 4 million views more than Daredevil got. And by the way, in case you didn't catch it, yes, all of these views by Disney are cited as global views. Global. This is not North America. It's not the United States. This is the entirety, the 150 some odd million or so subscribers to Disney Plus on the entire planet of Earth. Compare that to your average run-of-the-mill, no major IP connection Netflix entry on any given Friday. It's a drop in the bucket. Now, The Acolyte cost Disney somewhere around $300 million from what we can tell. Now, sure, they got some of those back in film tax credits in the UK, but let's say the final production cost of The Acolyte was probably $250 million. A disaster for the Walt Disney Company, as most of the things are that they produce these days. Now, did Daredevil have this kind of budget? That we don't know. Did Ahsoka have this kind of budget? It seems unlikely, as most of that was filmed here in California, or at least I should say here in the United States, but over in California in the volume that Jon Favreau created for The Mandalorian. Lower cost of production there. Daredevil, not a high-line production. Probably, hopefully, that Disney didn't spend more than $100 million on this. That would be nice. And maybe 7.5 million views in that regard isn't too shabby. But it's nothing to celebrate, especially when there's quite literally nothing on your entire streaming service that is of value to virtually anyone, especially not for what you're charging for it. And when the average age of your binge watcher on Disney is probably somewhere around 8, shows like Star Wars and Marvel are going nowhere for it. Matter of fact, Disney might have been better served to co-release this, Daredevil, on Hulu at the same time as Disney Plus. These numbers might have been sharply better for Disney, but for whatever reason, they didn't want to do it because they think that these core IPs should stay on Disney Plus because there's some kind of draw. The problem with Disney is that they still don't seem to understand that nobody watches Disney Plus without a very specific reason to. Nobody goes into Disney Plus to surf around and see what's there and find something to watch. They do that on Netflix. They do that on Amazon Prime. And to a lesser extent, they do that on Disney's new streaming service that they are still trying to finish acquiring for quite a pretty penny, Hulu. Maybe they should have tried this there, or at least in both places at once. But this is where Disney is now with Marvel, and it doesn't seem to be getting any better, especially when we consider what's going on with Captain Falcon, which is, well, really not much. For good measure, everybody. 9.3 million views for Agatha. And we laughed about this. We absolutely laughed about this a few months ago. Again, considering what had happened to the rest of Marvel over the last several years. And again, this big Marvel show on Disney Plus came out just a couple of months after Deadpool and Wolverine, which, as we predicted correctly, was going to give no boost to the rest of the MCU. And it didn't.
Make sure you're subscribed to Valiant Renegade and join us every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern for the live show.